I gave private lessons and until I would point to a place on the music and move my hand over because I was pointing in the wrong place. I thought, well, the time has come to retire, so I did. I loved teaching and I really enjoyed it, and glad I was able to teach as long as I did. On my 92nd birthday, I played two pieces, one by Bach and one by Mozart. And that was the way I celebrated my birthday then, but that was just about the end of it then. I was born in Minneapolis, yeah, in St. Mary's Hospital, 1914, a long time ago. I had a lovely experience going to John Burroughs School and coming home every day in the spring by the Minnehaha Creek. I always came home with wet feet. That was routine, and I think my family were a little disturbed with me, but I was just really taken with the beauty of the creek and of the foliage, and I'm glad that I lived there when it was still rather wild. My first lessons were with Louise Lupien Jenkins, and she lived at that time in St. Paul, and my mother had to bring me on the streetcar, and I would sit there at the piano and play, and Mrs. Jenkins would say, "That's very pretty, but that's not what's on the paper." My father was a singer, so we naturally had a closeness of feeling for one another because of the music, and I accompanied him and went around and played for him. I remember I went down to the Minneapolis Club. They were having a meeting upstairs, and I stayed down in the lobby, and he sent someone down, or came down himself to get me to come up and play for him. I played Danny Deaver. That was a song that everybody always wanted to hear him sing. The young recruits are shaken, and they'll want their beer today after hanging Danny Deaver in the morning. That's about the way I remember my father singing it anyway. But he was awfully good. It's hard to lose him, terribly hard. And that was in 1932, just at the peak of the Depression, and we were really up against it without him. It was very, very hard. But I'm awfully glad I had him. It's good to have a father like that. I got on very, very well with my stepmother. And they had a daughter who is 14 years younger than I. So after my father died, that was the lowest point in my life, really. We were absolutely poor. And my grandmother, bless her heart, was a Civil War widow, and she had a pension. And she sent us the pension every month. And that was how we lived. Well, I, of course, had to earn some money. So I went out and worked in a home in Anoka. It was a pastor's home, and I took care of their children. My father's friend, Frank Steiner, who is the owner of the American Linen Company, well, he had been away when my father died. So when he returned home, he had heard of my father's passing and called my mother. He said, "What is Madeleine doing?" "Well, she's working in a home out in Anoka." "Oh," he said, "well, she's got to go to school." So I went to school at his expense. I could walk one way from 32nd and Colfax down to the McPhail School, and then I'd take the streetcar home. But I didn't have much money. I had very little money, and buying tokens was one of the things that was just too much. I couldn't manage it. I was the valedictorian of my class at McPhail, I think there were 4 or 5 people in the class. It was really a sad time for colleges or anything, I think, because of the Depression. When I was almost through school, I went over to the piano store between LaSalle and Nicollet on 10th Street. And I went over there and played on the pianos, and I found this one piano that I just loved. And I thought, well, when I get some money, I'm going to buy that piano. I paid $10 a month. It seemed forever, but I did get the piano paid for. I was giving lessons to his cousin. He came in the house and saw me, and I guess liked the look of me. So he came and had some piano lessons. And then he had to go into the service because the Second World War was on. And he had been rejected a couple of times because of his eyes, but then he was admitted into limited service. And he stayed in Minneapolis all through his time in the service, which meant that he and I had a very nice courtship. And we were married for 47 years. We had a very good marriage and a good long time together. God has just provided for me. It's just been wonderful. And then he provided me with a dear husband and 2 very good and wonderful sons. Well, I do have that love for them. I do indeed. And, why wouldn't I? They're wonderful people. And, really, really wonderful people. That's one thing about music. I think it brings out the best in people, but I think it also brings out the best people. It's got to be between Brahms and Rachmaninoff. I guess I'm a romantic. For Rachmaninoff, it would have to be the Second Piano Concerto. I just love that piece. It's so wonderful. I'm grateful for every breath I take. I think I'm very blessed indeed. And God has been very good to me all my life. When I think of going through the Depression and think of how he cared for me and how Frank Steiner came through with money for my education. That just, it's just marvelous. And I think of the teachers I had and how wonderful they were and how much I appreciated them. They're all gone. They're really important parts of my life that I just don't want to forget. And talking about them reminds me, of the wonderful, wonderful opportunities I've had and wonderful, wonderful people that I've met. I just feel blessed indeed to have them in my memory.